Welcome everyone to meeting number 123. That's 123 of Sacramento Area Bogleheads. Today is Saturday, September 20th, 2025. Now we have participants, I think, from other Boglehead chapters, not just Sacramento. I know we have San Jose on, probably a couple of others. Everyone is welcome here today. Now today's meeting Zoom co-hosts are Gene T, Bert, and well, I'm not seeing them on the screen, so it's hard for me to remember. Moshe, and Alan as well, but Alan's our speaker today. Now, the topic of today's special meeting is upgrading to Windows 11. We'll be hearing shortly from Alan Baker on this topic, and we hope to have time for questions and maybe even some discussion. Now, you'll find archives of our presentations from past meetings at Sacramento Area Bogleheads, all one word, .org. Please turn on your camera and video during this meeting, especially when asking a question or replying. And remember to mute when you're not speaking. Thank you. Now, we send links to the recording of this event to attendees and to core members. This entire meeting or excerpts of this meeting will be posted to our YouTube channel. Now, this is a bit of a departure from our usual process, so if you are averse to being identified, may I suggest that you change your screen name to something more anonymous, put in an alias or put in X's or something like that. That should be good enough. Now you can find recordings of our past speakers on our YouTube channel. So how do you find that? You use your favorite search browser, such as YouTube or Google, and search for Sacramento Area Bogleheads. It'll be one of the first links that comes up. Now I'd like to now ask everyone to introduce yourself in chat if you haven't already. Please enter your first name, last initial, city, and state where you're calling from. And I'll wait a couple seconds for everyone to complete that. For those unable to use chat, you can send an email to sacramento.bogleheads@gmail.com. Include today's date, that's September 20th, and the Zoom meeting passcode, which today is 668687. So thank you, everybody, for coming today. So as I mentioned earlier, the topic of this meeting is upgrading to Windows 11. And our speaker today is Alan Baker. He is retired from a senior information technology position at IBM. Everybody heard of IBM? It's a small little concern. Alan currently enjoys helping nonprofits with technology needs, volunteering for places like AARP or SIR and other organizations, including ours. We're very fortunate to have him with us today to talk about an upgrade path from the soon-to-be outdated Windows 10. So I'd like to pass it over to Alan at this point for his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
I'm Alan Baker, and welcome everybody to this little talk about Windows 11 upgrade. I got into this idea because a lot of people are delaying the evil day of upgrading to Windows 11. And I mostly wanted to convey the idea that if you do just the regular Windows 11 upgrade, it's real simple, straightforward stuff. In fact, a lot of people have it happen to them without their even knowing it. They happen to push a button in Windows upgrades and boom, it's done. So it's not something to be afraid of. It's just another thing. So let me share my screen and we will go for the slides. How's that look? Okay. Yeah, I think so.
Looks good.
Okay. As we're going along, please feel free to pose a question in the chat of your Zoom session, and I'll pause periodically for some questions, and Bert will try to summarize your question, and he'll pose that question to me. Or you can use the raise hand feature of Zoom, and Greg will recognize you and bring you in at the appropriate time to ask your question verbally instead of in text form. You'll see here at the bottom of this slide, there is a link to the presentation. And so I'd encourage you, that's the one, you don't have to take notes. If you just write that one thing down, it's got it all there. And there's links inside that link, inside that presentation, to some of the software and procedures that I'll be talking about. It's on the very last slide of that presentation. So I hope everybody's got that written down, but you'll get to see it again at the very end. So I'm going to proceed to the next slide, I hope. Yeah, here we are. Okay, today we'll talk about three things: how to prepare for upgrading to Windows 11 and some alternatives to that idea. Then we'll go through the standard upgrade, which is pretty simple, and then what to do if things go pear-shaped. And then finally, we'll wrap up with what to do about non-standard installations, like you want to replace everything on your computer because you have a virus or your hardware isn't up to snuff. So that's what we're going to do today. As with many things, preparation is the key to success, and you need a plan because Windows 10 support ends on October 14th. Now, you might say, well, so what? I'm doing fine on Windows 10. I'll just carry on beyond October 14th. Well, I want to convey that that's a very bad idea, principally because of security. Once Microsoft starts updating Windows 10 with fixes to all the vulnerabilities that they find, and there are many that occur each month, and they patch them each month. But when those become revealed, they will be patched on Windows 11, but not on Windows 10. So this is a very clear message to the bad guys about which computers are now safe and which computers are now vulnerable to them. And you may rest assured that as soon as there is a vulnerability that is patched on Windows 11, but not patched on Windows 10, they are going to go after that vulnerability on Windows 10 user computers. And someone earlier mentioned getting warnings about attempted attacks on his computer. That just happens all the time. We're inundated with phishing attempts, all those. Every time you see those lights blinking on your wireless router, those are probes. These people are testing us all the time to see whether our security is up to date. And so I'm doing this presentation primarily to encourage you to upgrade to Windows 11, not because I care about Windows 11, but to keep you safe while you're on the internet. So there are some options to upgrading your computer to Windows 11. One is to buy another computer. And that's a perfectly good thing. If you have a 15-year-old computer, well, it's probably time to upgrade anyway. It doesn't owe you anything. You might get some other benefits out of it, just being faster and so on. So I'm sure that HP and Dell and Lenovo would be glad for you to take that option. And Microsoft kind of helps them by introducing a thing they call the PC Health Check app. And that says that your computer is or is not ready to upgrade to Windows 11 based on some very arbitrary standards of hardware. And you may well be able to upgrade that old computer anyway. And we'll talk a lot more about that. But that is one alternative to buying a new one. Another alternative is to just go with a different operating system. There are a lot of different Linux variants that are out there available to that you could use instead of Windows on your same hardware. You could go to Chrome OS, and there are other variations and alternatives other than Windows. However, a lot of us are just accustomed to Windows. We know the interface, and it's simpler for us to stay with it. Microsoft also has this thing called extended software updates, where you can get a year's worth of security updates on your Windows 10 system, but ultimately at the end of that year, you've still got to upgrade or do something. I'll talk some more about that one. Another option, Zero Patch. And that allows you to stay on Windows 10, and a company called Zero Patch will provide you the security updates to those vulnerabilities that I talked about. You won't get any new features on Windows 10, but if you have a real need to stay on Windows 10, like your software is somehow tied specifically into Windows 10 application software that won't run on Windows 11, then Zero Patch would be an option for you. Other things being equal, I think it's better to upgrade to Windows 11, but if you need to stay on Windows 10, Zero Patch is a good approach for you. And pardon me. And finally, the option is what we're mostly going to talk about today is to upgrade the operating system itself. Now, Microsoft has this PC Health Check app, and I'm going to talk further about it, but I want to emphasize that it uses very arbitrary standards for what can and cannot be upgraded. It's also possible that your hardware is so old that you may run into problems later on, but with Windows 11 or some other application. But the arbitrariness of these hardware requirements that they state is pretty obvious. I think they simply want to sell more computers and help out HP, Dell, and Lenovo. So the last bullet there is something that I encourage everyone to do, regardless of whether they're upgrading, and that's to have a full backup of your computer. And by full backup, I mean not just your pictures and your documents, but sooner or later, things will go horribly wrong on your computer, just at the worst possible time. Maybe you have a disk crash. And if you have a situation like that and you don't have a good backup, it's going to become very painful to get yourself back to where you want to be. So I always advocate having a full backup that not only backs up your pictures and your photos and your operating system, it has the ability for you to restore back onto bare metal, meaning, let's say your drive crashed and you've had to replace it with a functional one. You need a method to then get everything in your environment back onto that new hard drive. And I use uh, a software that's called Veeam. It's primarily for enterprise users, but they do have a free version for uh, non-enterprise people like us. And I have a link to that in the slides at the end. So if you're interested in connecting up with them, you get some free backup software. And I've used it for years, and I find it's quite good. It'll enable you to do full backups, incremental backups, a full recovery onto a brand new hard drive, or if you just messed up one important file that you've backed up, you can retrieve that one file and put it back as well. So those are my thoughts about preparation, and I'll ask if you have any questions about what we've talked about so far. I don't see any hands up, but Bert, maybe you see something in the chat.
No, not yet, except that there's someone who is interested in trying to keep operating with Windows 10.
Okay, if you have a reason to stay on Windows 10, then zero patch is a good way to go. If you don't need to stay on Windows 10, I'd ask consider the alternative of upgrading to Windows 11. So let's talk about that.
Hey, Alan, quick question.
Hey,
So my PC is 5 years old and then Windows 10, but every time I power it up, it's still doing some kind of updates which are taking longer and longer. Then, of course, bugging me to upgrade to Windows 11, or maybe I cannot upgrade to Windows 11 on this computer. But what are the checks it's doing for more and more minutes every power cycle? Any idea?
when it takes a long time to boot up, that's usually because you have a lot of software that's saying, I want to be loaded at boot time and available at a single keystroke for you. And most of those get dragged in by some other kind of software unawares to you, and you probably don't even need those. So what I find is that it's best to use, let's see, you can use Windows Task Manager to tell you which things are running at start time. And then take a look at those. And using Windows Manager, you can cause them, the ones that you don't want to start up at start time. You can tell them, I don't want that. I'll just check in with you when I want you. You don't have to come to me.
Yeah, I did that and it's slightly faster, but Windows itself is doing something while it's not even an upgrade to Windows 11 as of now. So, okay.
There are a lot of things that make computers run slowly. Now, you may find that the simple act of upgrading to Windows 11 clears that problem, uh, but it's something that needs particular research to deal with a particular issue.
Thanks.
We have a question from Dave, who just raised his hand. So, Dave, could you go ahead with your question?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead, Dave.
Uh, okay, Alan. Uh, I've got an old computer. I've got a newer Windows 11, but my old one has so much stuff on it. I don't want to go through upgrading. I've kind of halfway gone through it, but it's Windows 7, and it's probably 15 years old, but it works fine. And I've got a VPN. I use Norton. I know at some point websites will stop working because Chrome's no longer updating and all that good stuff. I had a forced update from Microsoft one time on this thing, and I had to rebuild the entire computer because it just blue screened after that update to Windows 10 came through. Is there a path from Windows 7 to Windows 11? And if so, what are the chances? I don't even know if this computer, I'd have to look at the hardware and everything to see if it would even run on Windows 11.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Upgrading from Windows, I mean, you're going through like 4 levels of Windows from 7 to 8 to 8.1 to 10 to 11. Um, I don't know whether that's going to make the grade.
Yeah.
But I, if it's got a lot of stuff that you need locally, you could consider just disconnect that thing from the internet and use it for your local photo editing or spreadsheets or whatever you need to do,
Okay.
because it'll
That's a good
continue to
idea.
run fine. The real risk is its exposure directly to the internet. It hasn't. There have been a lot of patches and upgrades and security enhancements since Windows 7 days, and I just don't think Windows 7 is a good idea to expose to the internet.
Just
Moshe, do
asking for
you have a
trouble.
thought? Yeah, that's right. You have some thoughts,
Wholeheartedly
Moshe?
agree. Just to back you up, Alan, absolutely, that's a that's a solid plan. One thing I would say, Dave, is what you might consider doing if you've got data on there you want to preserve or as an archive. You could do what's known, depending on your technical expertise, what's known as a physical to virtual conversion, and then you could load it inside some sort of a hypervisor, which would allow you to then get access to the data. You'd have one single flat file that you could back up for recoverability, and you could keep it isolated from the internet at the same time. So that might solve some of your problems. So if you want to Google something, it's called a physical to virtual conversion. And you can do that for free, basically, if you know what you're doing. But again, it does require a certain level of technical expertise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the insights. Thanks.
Alan,
Yes,
I
Bert.
am collecting questions. However, there is a request for you to continue with your presentation. Maybe save more questions for later.
Indeed. Let's move on. So, as I mentioned, Microsoft has a program that will allow you to stay on Windows 10 for 1 year, and they will provide additional security updates, no feature improvements. But if you are just too overwhelmed to do it before October 14th, you can get security updates only through this ESU program. But to use it, your Windows 10 computer has to be up to the latest level of updates. And then you go into the Windows Update screen, as I noted here, and click Enroll Now on their support thing. And for the privilege, you pay $30 or do some other Microsoft thing, and that will allow you to stay on Windows 10 for 1 year. At that time, you're going to still have to upgrade to Windows 11. It's simply postponing the day. So let's talk about what it takes to do a Windows 11 upgrade. Well, it's actually pretty simple. You go to that Windows Update screen by clicking on Settings, Update Security, Windows Update, and say, okay, I want to do it. You've been nagging me for months. I'll go ahead and do it. You push the button, and then the computer will start updating. It'll reboot a few times. It'll follow that with more updates of the latest software. And eventually it'll say, welcome. And you'll find a little different look and feel, but you're up and running on Windows 11. Now, once in a while, things go pear-shaped, and I have a troubleshooting page that will talk about in a minute, but we'll take a little break and ask for any questions about the standard upgrade to Windows 11. Onward to troubleshoot post-installation. Now, as you probably remember from previous upgrades of Windows, Windows puts a bunch of bloatware on their systems that at least I don't really care to have there. For instance, I don't really want Microsoft's shopping assistant or Microsoft's news or Microsoft's weather and all these various things that they throw in there. So you can go in there and you can disable each of them manually, or if you'd like, you can download and unzip Crap Fixer, and it will pop up a little screen like you see on this slide that easily enables you to disable or enable various features of Microsoft 11 and tailor your out-of-box experience to what you want it to be. You don't have to do this, by the way. It's just purely optional. If you like to have the Xbox and the all the Windows things that they provide you, then you don't need to bother with this. But as usual, I will encourage you to make a backup as soon as you've got this stable Windows 11 environment installed. Do another backup to give you a place to go back to safety in case you push the wrong button and you mess something up. You'll have a path back home again. So that's my post-installation stuff. But occasionally things go wrong. And it's actually pretty rare, but if it does, there is a troubleshooter for Windows Update. And here's how you get to it with settings, system troubleshooter, or other troubleshooting other troubleshooters. And that's a good place to start if you have a problem. As you're upgrading Windows, it is actually rewriting and copying files to different places on your hard disk. And it's also possible that there is some corruption on those new places on your hard disk that weren't being accessed before. And so these are some commands that you can use to fix problems with corrupted files. And you may have just some bizarre something that crashes, something that doesn't work as expected. If you encounter that, then this is something to apply. And finally, if the Windows upgrade isn't proceeding properly, another thing you can do is to clear the Windows Update cache. And here's the procedure for how to do that. Pretty rare, but it's something that can be done. So I'm going to stop here again and see if we have any questions.
Big H has his hand up.
Go for it, Big H.
Yeah, Alan, thank you so much for this presentation. It's going great so far. And I had a question for you. So I use a computer. My main computer that I'm using, I've already upgraded to Windows 11. I have two backup computers. One is 8 years old. The other one is like 12 years old. And I keep those backup laptops on hand, in case my main laptop for some reason crashes or goes out of order, and so on. And so I understand that with older laptops, they lack a hardware requirement that leaves them ineligible for upgrading to Windows 11, something TSC or TPM. Can one still install Windows 11 on those older laptops? I've kind of read both things, that on one hand, no, you can't. Some people say, yes, you can install Windows 11. They just won't have some of those enhanced security features on them. Any thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for asking that question, Big H, because you're my perfect straight man for the succeeding slides in this presentation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the answer is yes and no, because usually, yes, you can bypass those arbitrary requirements, and I'm going to talk about how to do so.
Mhm.
But occasionally, the hardware is truly too old or unique, and it simply will not upgrade.
Mhm.
Other questions? Okay, then let's go on to some other scenarios that you might have that are a little different from the standard upgrade.
Alan, I do have,
Yes, Miriam.
I do have a question along with what Big H asked. When you say that the software may be inside the computer may be simply too old to update. Like him, I have a Dell Latitude E7440 that I'm on right now. It's a high-end laptop, a large laptop from 2014. My son told me it does have it can be updated to Windows 11, he told me. It is, shall we say, it has what it takes to go into a Windows 11, but he has not done it. He's not here. And do you see that as a problem like Big H had for this computer? He now has a Windows 10 on it. It was originally a Windows 7 computer.
Mhm. Yes, it's a very similar situation to what Big H just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I suggest that you give the succeeding slides to your son, because it kind of scripts out how to deal with your situation and how to upgrade it.
And when you say how to deal with my situation, how do you define my situation or our situation?
Well, if you have a computer that is now running Windows 10
Right,
and it's working just fine, it's performing properly for you,
right.
you want to upgrade it to Windows 11, but the Microsoft PC Health Check may say, oops, you don't have the TPM or you don't have something
Uh-huh.
that enables you to pass my test. And that's the situation that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes.
Okay.
Maybe that's what you have. Is that true, Miriam?
I don't know. What do you mean? I don't know because we haven't tried it. But
Okay.
it is a very old, it's like 14, well, it's from 2014. So it was originally a Windows 7 and it upgraded to Windows 10 fine, but we have not tried Windows 11. And I don't want to, it doesn't have a whole lot of stuff on it. I mainly use it it's not my main computer. My main computer is a desktop, a new desktop, a new Dell HPS. XPS, I'm sorry, XPS. So for this one, there's not a lot to lose on it, but still I want it to upgrade smoothly.
Well, sure. Then run that PC Health Check that's on the
Okay.
update screen, and it'll tell you whether or not it thinks you can upgrade. And if it says you're good to go, then go right on through with the standard upgrade. If not, if it says you can't upgrade to Windows 11, then stay tuned and we'll talk about it on the subsequent slides.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm
And
sorry
by
to
the way,
jump in
for
there.
those of one moment, Eric, you mentioned something a moment ago about having a couple of Dell computers. If you have a Dell computer, go out to the Dell website and get the latest firmware for your computer. There was a couple of weeks ago, there was a vulnerability that was found in the Dell firmware that affects millions of Dell computers, and it's a bad vulnerability that allows the bad guys to take over your computer. So it's a good practice to periodically go to your vendor's website, upload or download the latest firmware that they have available, regardless of what kind of computer you have. And in the case of Dell, there's a especially good reason right now.
Yes.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's very much related to both what Miriam and Big H were saying. I got a notice from one of my, and I'm sure a lot of people in this group probably use TurboTax. I got a notice that TurboTax would not be supported on Windows 10 this year, desktop version, not the online version, but desktop. You couldn't install it because it needed the TPM. And TPM, I found, is actually a piece of hardware. It's a chip. If you don't have it in there, I guess you can't put Windows 11 on it. So I'm kind of curious what you're going to say about that. Additionally, I'm curious that even if I can do some sort of patch for 11, whether the software will still be supported when it already said it won't.
That's a very good question, Eric. And I wish I could give you a definitive answer there because, for example, Microsoft says you need TPM 2.0 to upgrade to Windows 11. But as it turns out, TPM 1 works just fine. Now, I don't know about TurboTax or any other particular application software that runs there. They may, in your case, let's say they may allow an upgrade to, or you may be able to upgrade to Windows 11 with TPM 1, and then TurboTax or some other application comes along and says, well, we can't run on your hardware. That is possible as hardware ages that you're going to run into that. But my experience so far has been that if you can get it up to Windows 11, the applications will probably run properly for you there.
Yeah, okay. So just to follow up really quickly for what Miriam was saying, the vintage of my computer is quite similar to hers. And I've already been told that TPM it's a piece of hardware. If you don't have the IC on there, Windows 11 can't be loaded onto the computer. And
that's
so
exactly what Microsoft tells you. But we're going to talk about on subsequent slides that that's not quite true.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Sure. Anything else? Bert, go ahead.
Yes, just a response to Miriam. I have two Dell computers I purchased in 2017, and they do not have the TPM chip. That's it.
Okay.
So I need the TPM chip. Is that correct?
Yes. As far as I know. We'll find out from listen to Alan, we'll find out more.
I probably have it since my son said I can upgrade to Windows 11. I'm not saying I can, but I would suspect I do. But again, it wants to be, I just need to know whether there are difficulties because it is an old computer. It is an old laptop.
Well, here's my thought. Back up your computer, as I described at the beginning.
Yeah.
Try the upgrade. If things go horribly wrong, you've lost nothing, you can fall back. But in my experience, I haven't seen a computer yet that was running Windows 10 well that wasn't able to upgrade to Windows 11. Moshe.
Thanks, Alan. Just as an aside, do realize that hardware does have a life cycle. And what I mean by that is the older they are, the more likely they are to fail. So, you've gotten what, Miriam, you said 14 years out of it? I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact
Yeah, it's
date.
14. It's a latitude
So
7440.
11 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
I realize that you're more, more on the consumer side of things, but even if you have a solid state hard drive there, those cells that the solid state hard drive use has a limited number, a read write cycle. So if it was me and I would replace it. I just tell you right now, honestly, I wouldn't even bother to try to upgrade it. Replace it. Copying files and settings, especially when it sounds like your son is somewhat experienced, is really not a big deal. You can do that kind of a thing in, let's say, 3 hours. You're, top to bottom, you're done. So I would say just pull the trigger and replace it. That's me personally. I do that all the time. I get 5, 6 years and I replace my equipment. So because I just don't want it to fail in situ. I mean, it to be the worst thing. Okay, shutting up. Thanks, Howard.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly right. There is no single answer to this question of hardware. Is it too old? Some people want to continue on using it until that in situ failure. Other people are, businesses in particular, that's why they rotate through every 3 or so years. They just don't want to deal with those kind of problems. Consumers are a little more flexible. Okay, so this slide is what is a particular case where you have a Windows 10 computer and it's not behaving well. Maybe it has viruses. Maybe that it's just got stuff going on that you don't like. The software is hosed, but you think that the hardware is fundamentally okay. That's the scenario where you would want to do a clean installation of Windows 11. Now, I put in the first bullet there, this method is for techies only because it's a little more involved. It requires you, I keep talking about backup, and this time it's essential to have the backup. Otherwise, you're going to lose all your photos, documents, data, spreadsheets, and whatever. Because when you run the media creation tool, create the bootable flash drive, and do the upgrade, it's going to wipe everything on the computer. And you need that backup to restore later on. So this is a good approach if your software that you're using today on Windows 10 has problems. It's unlikely, I guess I'd say, but it is another way forward. Notice that, let's see, the fourth bullet there says to set the boot priority to enable booting from the flash drive. The way this works is that you copy the Windows installation software onto a flash drive. You download it from Microsoft and you put it on that flash drive. But your computer may or may not recognize that flash drive as a bootable device. So you have to go into the computer's BIOS, set the priority so that it will enable looking for that flash drive as a bootable device before it looks at the hard disk. That will enable you to boot the flash drive, which has the installation software. From that point on, it looks like a previously described installation of Windows 11. But when you get to the end of that process, you've got a couple of additional steps. Because everything was wiped out, you need to restore the application programs, your spreadsheets and your web browsers and so on, because they were also wiped out. So anything that you have as application programs has to be reinstalled. Some of these could be downloadable programs, or they may be licensed programs. So if it's a licensed program, be sure you have saved the license key before you begin this process. And once you've got the applications in place, then you can restore from backup your photos, documents, spreadsheets, and whatever you normally do with your computer. So that's a clean installation of Windows 11. Any questions about that one?
I think we probably need to expedite at this point. Maybe we could ask people to put their questions in chat to have Bert handle later. We're
Cool.
pressed on time a bit.
Okay, moving on. Now, here's where the old hardware comes in. It's impossible to say what is too old, but for old hardware that does not pass that test that Microsoft puts into the upgrade process, you can install. Oh, wait a minute, let me back up one. I skipped a slide. This is the in-place hardware, in-place upgrade. And you can use the Windows Server installer as opposed to the Windows Home or Pro installer to install your software. And you could go get the Windows Server installer and step through this, but some clever people have wrapped this into a program that's called Flyubi, and it runs the Windows Server installer, brings in the Windows Home or Pro Microsoft Windows version 11 that would be appropriate for your computer, and then it begins the upgrade for you. And from that point forward, it looks like a regular Windows upgrade. It's just that you got there through a different path using the Windows Server installer, which doesn't check for TPM and those other various things. Now, when you do this, Windows Defender will say, whoa, I don't recognize Flyubi. You sure you really want to do this? I don't recognize it. And yes, the answer is yes. So this is, I've used this method on an old computer, works great. And for Miriam and Big H, this might be what you need. The next one is the combination of the two scenarios that we just talked about. One is you want to do a clean installation because there's something going on with your software, and you also don't pass the hardware test. And this uses yet another tool called Rufus. And with this one, you download Rufus and run that, and it will modify the Windows installation software as it writes it onto the flash drive. As I mentioned earlier, you have to reset the BIOS to ensure that that drive is bootable, and then you boot it up, follow the prompts, and everything flows pretty much like a regular Windows 11 upgrade. But because this is a clean installation, as I mentioned earlier, you have to reinstall the application programs that are free or licensed and restore the backup files of the docs, photos, whatever you have for data files from your good backup. So that's the, I guess, fourth variation on a Windows installation. And these are the links that I mentioned earlier. You can get the Windows 11 software from that link. You can get Flyubi from that one. The Veeam installation software for Microsoft Windows backup. Crap Fixer. By the way, Flyubi incorporates Crap Fixer, so if you happen to go that path, you don't have to get Crap Fixer separately. It'll automatically boot into that. And I also mentioned Rufus as the way to do a clean installation on incompatible hardware. If you're in that situation, you can use this link to get Rufus.
So, Alan, what is the main difference between Rufus and Flyubi?
Use Flyubi for an in-place upgrade, whereas you would use Rufus for a clean installation where you have to wipe everything out, start with a fresh hard drive.
Got it. Thanks.
So we're at the end of the slides, and now it's your turn to ask your questions or whatever you'd like to talk about.
Okay, are you going to stop sharing?
Yes, that's a very good idea.
And I'll pass this to Bert first for whatever he'd like to get going for the excuse me, for the chat, and then I'll handle the participant questions if anyone wishes to raise their hand and ask one offhand. So Bert, it's all yours.
How do you raise your hand?
You have to use the Zoom raise your hand, or you can be on camera and physically raise your hand. Bert?
Okay, let's see. I have well, here's one that we can answer pretty quickly, I suppose. Is there any value to waiting until Windows 12 comes out?
That could be a long wait. And the short answer is going to be no, because that's probably years from now. And for those years, if you remain on Windows 10, you're going to have a lot of security exposures. So do something before the middle of October. Make a decision, go with some solution, but don't just wait.
We have a question from George.
Hi, George.
Hey, hi, Alan. Great to see you again. So my question is, I have two Windows 10 computers that are not upgradable, and I also have a Chromebook. And my thought is, why not just forget about the Windows and just use my Chromebook and let Chrome worry about the updates and fixes and viruses?
Well, that's a good question. Chromebooks are good if you understand their focus. They're more oriented toward using the internet provided cloud applications. They provide inherently not much storage on the local computer, and they're really geared toward using cloud applications. And one thing to know about Chromebooks is that they don't run Windows programs. They need specific Chrome OS programs. And that may be fine for you. For someone else, that may be a problem because they absolutely positively have to use some application that only runs on Windows.
Okay. The only program I use on Windows is TurboTax, so that might force me in itself to upgrade. So thank you very much.
Sure. I could be that TurboTax also runs on, TurboTax has a desktop version that I know runs on Windows. Somebody was talking about that earlier, but you can also run TurboTax on the web, on the internet. So a tool like Chromebook would be fine for running TurboTax there.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hang on here. Let's see. See, for us Windows 7 holdouts, will we need to buy a license of Windows 10 and 11? And I assume buying it but not using it or something like that. I'm not sure what the question means.
Yeah, I don't know about Windows 7 in particular, but your computer stores its Windows license in its firmware. So I don't know whether you can upgrade directly from a Windows 7 environment and skip over Windows 8 or 8.1 and 10 and go directly to Windows 11 without a clean installation. But the key thing is that the license key is stored in the computer, and when you wipe the disk, it doesn't wipe the license key.
Okay, next up is Jean and then Moshe.
Hi, Alan. Good job. Can you put a link to your slides in the chat so I can just copy it?
Yes, I will do that. Or could Bert, could you do that? Bert, could you put that there? I think you have it. Just so I can keep going with the questions. Or
Okay.
was there another hand up?
Moshe was next.
Oh, Moshe put it in there already?
Great.
Yes, it's there at the top.
Okay, great. Thanks.
First
Thanks,
thing
Moshe.
I appreciate it, of course. I can also, if anyone wants, there's also the link to Alan's excellent internet security presentation, which we probably should put in there too, because it's worth going through. All right, what was I going to respond to? Now, kind of my head went out of the loop there for a second. Why don't you continue on? I'll remember in a moment.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Bert, you have something else in chat for us?
Yeah, I'm scanning through now to try to keep up. Let's see here.
Well, while you're waiting, how about Miriam? Let's go with Miriam.
Hi, Alan. What do you think of carbonite backup? I'm not trying to change the subject. It's just that if you go to Windows 11, and I had just signed up 2 months ago for carbonite backup and their security program. Does that move over, or do I, what happened? I'm not familiar with it. I haven't used it yet. I just started it. When we have things like that, what do we do when we move to
Right.
Windows? Yeah.
If you can do the standard upgrade of Windows,
Okay.
or even the Flyubi upgrade in place, all those application programs like Carbonite and so on will just stay there. They won't go away.
So just move over to the Windows 11 then?
Right. They just remain there, and Windows 11 operating system kind of slides in over 10. So your Carbonite should be just fine when you get to Windows 11. There may be some setting tweaks that you have to make, but it won't go away or anything.
What would not go over? Any particular programs that we would all have that we would have a trouble with going from 10 to 11?
I'm not aware of any that I haven't experienced any that would not go over. I've done a few of these upgrades and everything just continued on. Maybe somebody knows of one that won't transfer. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Jay and then Moshe.
Yeah, Alan. So if this TPM is a chip, is someone selling it on a USB thumb drive? I can just keep it permanently among my 3 USB ports, or is that a $1 billion idea that no one's done yet?
Well, TPM is hardware. It's not software. And so you can't, I don't think you can put that on a flash drive.
No, I meant a USB device, I guess. Yeah, not necessarily a memory card.
Well, again,
Like we used to in the olden days and just plug in anything, right? USB camera, whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
There's no TPM chip available to buy from anyone, you're saying?
Oh, no, it's the TPM is soldered into the motherboard. It's not something that is replaceable or upgradable. It's just there.
Okay, Moshe, do you have a question or an answer for us?
Yes, sorry, I remembered what I was going to mention before. I apologize. There definitely was an upgrade path from Windows 7 to 10, as might be recalled. I did many an upgrade for clients. The problem is after a while, they took it away and they said, okay, that's it. If you haven't done it by this date, we're no longer going to let you do it. So I don't believe the path still exists from 7 to 10 for free. You may be able to bypass that like anything on the internet. You could probably search for that, see, but it's not if you load up your Windows 7 machine, it won't automatically prompt you to upgrade to Windows 10 like it used to. So that's all I wanted to add into that conversation. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I would like to one more point though.
Yes.
Do note in case we don't mind if I haven't mentioned it hasn't been mentioned yet. Office. So those of you that use Office 2016, 2019, that is also going end of service on the same date. So that also is an attack vector that you might want to also consider upgrading. It's a
Office
whole nother
2016
discussion. What's that?
Office 2016 and
2019.
2019?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Microsoft is rapidly moving all of its software onto the cloud wherever possible. And this is another example of Office moving off the computer itself and onto the cloud. If you're like me and you're resistant to that idea, there are open source alternatives available. And for example, I use LibreOffice on my computer. It's a very functional alternative to Microsoft Office. It doesn't cost you anything. It's open source, and I've used it successfully for years. There are some minor differences between that LibreOffice and Microsoft Office, but most things are very compatible, and there are millions of people using it over a long period of time. So that would be another alternative for you for if you're using Microsoft's Office 2014-16. But as Moshe said, you need to make some decision and take some action before the middle of October.
That Libre will import those files too, I believe.
Correct. You can open docx files and spreadsheets and all that stuff just the same way.
Gene.
Libra is spelled Libra.
Libre.
B-R.
Libre Office. LibreOffice.
And second thing is yes, Microsoft Office is updated. And let me tell you, Outlook is completely different than it was. It took me 3 months to learn it, but yeah, the Office package is a big change as well. So when you upgrade, schedule time to learn it.
Bert, what do you have for us? Or for Alan, I should say.
Oh, somebody was asking. Oh, okay. This is Joan Bowley. Was asking a question. She's thinking of abandoning Windows and going to a Mac. She's just asking a question about getting documents and pictures and such into the Mac world. Is that a very easy thing?
Well, before that question, I always encourage people when they're saying, should I use a Mac? Should I use Windows? Should I use iOS? Should I use Android? I always say just go where your support is, because sooner or later you're going to need help. And if you have like Miriam has a son who apparently is pretty up to speed on these things, use what that support person uses. In terms of switching to Mac, there's a lot of compatibility with Windows software, for example, spreadsheets and documents, but there is also a lot of unique Mac software. So it's a mixed bag. Other questions?
And for someone who uses Microsoft Office on both iOS, Mac, those are the two, mostly on iOS, you should be aware that the functionality can be very constrained. In other words, not as robust as on a Windows or a Mac computer, particularly iOS. That means iPad, basically, any type of iPad or iDevice. And Mac has most of the features, from what I could tell. I haven't fully explored Word or Word Office, but I have done quite a bit in Excel, and that does work. I still think it's a better product than Numbers, for what it's worth.
I see in the chat that Henry Goldwire said TPM is sometimes a plug-in chip, and 2.0 versions can be bought for some computers. So thank you for that, Henry. Your computer may or may not have a plug-in chip that you could replace that TPM.
Yeah, Alan, one more question. So if I'm
Sure,
going to
Jay.
upgrade to Windows 11 anyway, is there any difference between doing it on October 10th versus October 20th, before or after that cutoff date? It's the same, right?
Yes, the difference is not the software. The difference is the exposure to the bad guys. The reason I keep talking about middle of October is because after that date, any vulnerabilities that remain in your computer will be exploited by the bad guys.
Nice.
So unless you have some compelling reason to go beyond mid-October, go ahead and get the upgrade done first.
Cool. Thanks.
Bert, do you have some more for us?
Doesn't look like it. However, I would like to comment, since there are people questioning or not wanting to upgrade, I wanted to comment about Zero Patch, that if you buy their subscription, which works out to about $28 a year, if you buy it for 3 years, the patches that are done include Windows 7. They've been supporting Windows 7. Microsoft Office 2019, 2016, and 2013. Oh, even down to 2010. If you want to stay with your old stuff, I mean, if that's your desire. And they have been, like I said, supporting Windows 7, and they do plan to have support for Windows 10. And in their literature, they're saying for at least 7 years or somewhere thereabouts.
Okay. Joan B says, I'm considering abandoning Windows and buying a Mac. Would the backup and transfer of pics and docs be easy? I already use my iPhone and iPad every day.
It certainly can be done. I don't know about the easy part. Maybe someone else has done that and has some personal experience to share with her.
Anyone on that? Is it easy? Have you done it? And is it easy?
Easy. Yeah, the operative word.
Yeah, I mean, you can mount hard drives today, both will be recognized, both Windows and Mac. I've done it for clients. It's not a big deal. You can't guarantee that the file formats are going to be the same, however. If there's some specific software that, doc files docx files are probably not going to be a problem, because you could always install, as Greg, you have the Office on Mac, which will certainly do fine with that. Standardized formats like JPEGs and GIFs or GIFs, however you want to pronounce it, whatever, PDFs will not be a problem. So I would call that very easy, as a matter of fact. You mount it in Windows, you copy your files over, you mount it under Mac, and there they are, and you just put them where they need to go. But they're not going to go the same places. I think that's where the complexity comes in, is that, in Mac world, you have the whole concept of libraries, and in Windows, you have like users and user folders. So you need some expertise to put it in the right place, but I wouldn't call it hard by any stretch of the imagination. On a scale of 1 to 10, things I do every day, it would be like maybe a 1.5 at the most.
Just get Miriam's son to do it.
Should be able to do it. Miriam's son might be available, depending on what he does for a living. He
The
might also
problem is
be one
I
of these.
can't get him home.
There you go. What's he doing? He's probably one of these Google engineering types, right? He's like, Mom, I got people to do that for. I gotta hire someone to do that for you.
I think Henry G has an interesting question. He says, will the normal October update be available to Windows 10, or is September the last one?
Nope.
Good question. I don't know the answer. Does anybody else?
I think it's the October one is going to be the last one.
So the answer is yes. It'll be available in October.
What was that question, please?
Well, Henry wants to know, will the normal October update be available for Windows 10, or is September the last one?
No, yeah, October is the last one.
October is the last one. So
For
it will be
Windows-
available.
For the
And after
Windows,
that, no more support.
Okay, so October is the last date, the last month for Windows 10. Okay,
Yep,
that's good to know.
it's coming soon.
Scott, what's up? You're still
Unmute,
muted,
Scott.
There we
Scott.
go. I got it. Just an FYI, my mother is 90 years old. She was calling me every day for computer fixes. After a while, I finally broke down and said, just get a Mac. Macs are very easy. And we've been very lucky to have the Apple Store right here in the Galleria. So she is part of that help desk. She's with Apple Help every week. Get a Mac. They're easy.
Well,
Go
maybe
where
not
your support
easy.
is. Go where your support is.
Yes, that's what you want is your support.
It depends on the apps that you run and all sorts of other things too. How proficient you are, how comfortable you are. If you have problems with spreadsheets or word processing, you may have problems on any platform.
Right.
A woman named Sue, I assume it's a woman. Sue says, I know there are no crystal balls, but Google AI suggests Windows 12 will be out the end of this year or the beginning of 2026. Anyone have information on that?
I don't have information, but that sounds really soon. I mean, they haven't got everybody off Windows 10 yet. So I would just recommend not holding your breath for Windows 12.
Yeah. Someone is concerned about getting the information on your slide. Now I have a copy of your slides, but I think they're in a different order. Perhaps you could make available to me the whatever you presented today, and I will post a link to it on our website, and if possible, in the YouTube channel as well.
Moshe put it into the chat, and so it's there for you and all to see.
Okay. Very good.
I have a question.
Helen.
Yes, for those of us who are diehard Luddites sticking with Windows 10, if we survive the onslaught of viruses and attacks, what do you see as our future if we don't do anything dumb in terms of bringing in a terminal virus?
I guess I don't understand the question. Are you saying that you're smarter than the bad guys and you're going to prevent every possible
Well, I'll tell you our experience
attack?
with Windows 7 and previous versions. That, yes, I'm sure that they were trying to attack us, but somehow we managed to escape. And the Windows 7 computer still operates. And after a while, I think nobody who was a criminal wanted to attack the Windows 7 computers. It wasn't worth their while. So I think that the attacks, phishing and whatnot sort of died down. After everybody in the whole world was on Windows 10, we were ignored. So I'm wondering if if we stay on Windows 10 for other reasons, not hardware, that if we manage to survive the initial onslaught of attacks and stay up and running in the quiet, in the background, if we can continue on, reasonably well without you foreseeing some sort of horrible catastrophe.
Sure. Well, as I said at the outset, before October 14th, you need to do something. Do not stay on Windows 10. There are scripts running today attacking computers Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10. These aren't individual people that are trying to hack into individual computers. There are software systems running continuously searching for those computers. Now, if you truly must remain on Windows 10, then take Bert's approach, pay $28 a year, and get the zero patch service to help you with security vulnerabilities. Because if you just leave the door open, somebody is going to walk in, and you may not be seriously harmed, but it's like leaving the door to your house unlocked.
Apologies. Zero patch. That's different than Flyobe and all these other methods you were saying. I must have missed the zero patch slide with the URL and information.
There was not a slide. That was something that Bert mentioned. My slides were about how to get to Windows 11, and Flyobe and so on help you with that. But if you must remain on Windows 10, then zero patch will provide security fixes for your computer. And that's the key thing that you need. The name is number zero, patch.com, zeropatch.com.
Yeah,
That's the URL.
I just posted it in the chat.
Cool.
There is one more alternative, Ellen, if I can just point it out. It may be a non-usable alternative, but the alternative is take the Ethernet cord out of the back of your computer and disconnect it. Or the Wi-Fi and take the Wi-Fi card out of your computer. Then you don't have a problem. Does that make sense?
Yes, because you're disconnecting from the internet and the rest of the world. I understand that.
Yeah, there are companies that work that way. For example, they have systems inside that they use for critical, think about, defense firms or companies that are doing they literally have isolated systems that run on networks that are not exposed at all to the internet. So it depends on what your goal is. If you say, I've got a machine that all I want to do with it is run QuickBooks, that's all I want to do with it, then that's fine, in my opinion. Just make sure you're not connected to the internet. That's the key. But if you want to use it, go ahead. I see you want to say. Go ahead.
No, if it were me, I would be on Windows 11 because I'm too stupid to do anything else. But my husband is insistent on staying on Windows 10 because he writes software, and there is legacy software that he wants on Windows 10, and he hates Windows. So he doesn't like the fact that Windows 11 moves things around and doesn't allow him access to some of the things that he still had access to on Windows 10. So he's determined to keep this one computer on Windows 10. So I'm wondering if Bert can relay his experience with Zero Patch. Did it work well? Does he have confidence in this software company, or what is his experience?
Okay, from what I can tell is that they do seem to be a good company. I think Alan would support me on that. However, my experience is limited. I've had it for 6 months and it's the free version. And right now I am planning to use the paid version once October hits, and see how it goes. Now, it does what's called micro patching, where you load in a program and Zero Patch knows that it has a weakness and it'll do a fix in that operating program after you load it. Sometimes a window comes up and says, and I think it's related to Zero Patch, is this, oh, there's some kind of an exception, there's an error, shut down the program. Or it'll say, click on X to shut down the program. There's not much else you can do except do that and then try again. And it's not always consistent about when it happens, because I could restart the program, Zero Patch will go in it, and it's fine. So it's been interesting.
Ellen, I haven't used Zero Patch, but I know they're a very reputable company. They mostly operate in the enterprise space rather than dealing with consumers like us.
Yeah.
But I think for your husband's situation, that's a great alternative. It may be the only alternative, because if he just runs barefoot, continuing on Windows 10, he's going to get slammed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Enjoyed
we
the presentation.
Alan?
yeah, thank you very much. Now we only have 2 minutes left of this meeting, so I'd like to make these questions count. And Alan, answer quickly.
Alan, on Ellen's situation, if she had in her house 2 computers, one on 10 for her husband, one on 11 for herself, is there any problem if they're using the internet with them crossing over, or is each computer separate, a separate kingdom?
Each is separate, and each needs to have its own security updates.
So if anything happens to her husband's 10, it's not going to influence her 11 computer in the same house using the same internet.
No, I didn't say that. If her husband's computer gets invaded by the bad guys because he did not use Zero Patch, then everything inside her home is more exposed.
Because of the internet coming in, the one internet coming in.
Because everything behind her router is together. So any Wi-Fi or cable connections there within her home are exposed.
Right.
Other questions?
That network is open. Essentially, everything connected together is open to his computer.
Right. Inside the home, it's more trusted and more exposed to the bad guys that are now inside the home. So for her reasons as well, she doesn't want him to run barefoot on Windows 10. Any other questions before we close up?
Okay, I don't see any in the participant list. No one's raising their hand. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Alan, for taking time out of your Saturday to come and present on this, especially since this is a do-over for you in many ways. I know you've given this presentation prior, at least once or twice before, and maybe many times. I don't know how many groups you're associated with now. So I want to thank you for that. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending and asking good questions, and for Bert's contribution and Moshe's contributions. I won't say anything about my own because I'm a Windows dummy. But maybe that's why a couple of you are here and you appreciate Alan's good work. And we will get a version of the presentation out, and I'll post it on our website.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
This meeting is adjourned.